women making their own way and their own path, and not kind of conforming to any type of standards of what your life is supposed to look like or what you're supposed to do on anyone's calendar.
This week on The Trailblazers, we feature a young woman who is an award-winning international journalist who has worked with the likes of Essence Magazine, NBC News, and so many others. She has even featured several Jamaican personalities. Stay tuned for this inspiring interview with Erica Ayisi. What's your word to them?
I would say to fight. Fight for your dreams, fight for your purpose.
A life that inspires you, that motive that you aspire to be.
Right? It's not a waste time movement,
in my humble opinion, is become very comfortable with yourself.
Very important. You know, the saying in Jamaica, one hand can't clap.
You forgive yourself for allowing people to mistreat you.
Disciplines that we need to embody.
You just have to work at it and be committed. Everyone.
And scary to have all of that fall away from you. And you have to celebrate those wins. Work with fitness clients.
For guidance, rely on Christ for support.
And no rush. I did it. I made my move into entrepreneurship at 40.
So chicken, so scared that when...
What, last comments would you want to share with
you? You have your core values, you do the right things, it'll fall in place for you.
Hey everyone, I am Tamara McHale, producer and host of The Trailblazers with Tamara McHale TV show web series. Remember to click the notification bell right below, subscribe, like, comment, and share. And to join the Trailblazers family with Tamara McHale for weekly inspirational episodes every Sunday. Erica Ayisi is an accomplished multimedia international journalist with experience reporting in the United States, Africa, Jamaica, the United Kingdom, and more. She wears many hats, serving as a writer, associate producer, host, panelist, moderator, and on-air correspondent. Erica has worked for ETV Ghana, NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, behind the scenes of the Dr. Oz show, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and Saturday Night Live, Essence Magazine, and other major media outlets, including traditional and online outlets. Ayisi also worked as a one-woman band local reporter and anchor for Worcester News Tonight, Charter TV3. Each day she researched, pitched, produced, shot, wrote, edited, and reported on issues affecting the central Massachusetts. Prior to a career in journalism, Ayisi taught high school English for Worcester Public Schools and served on the board of directors of the YWCA of Central Massachusetts. She received a ceremonial key to the city of Worcester for her work as an international journalist. She is a member of the National Association of Black Journalists and the Southern New England Association of Black Journalists. Erica has received many awards, the latest being the 2020 Excellence Awards for her Essence Magazine story on a Jamaican female politician, Ann-Marie Vaz. Hi Erica, it is a pleasure to have you joining us on The Trailblazers.
Hello Tamara, how are you?
I am great, and looking at your background, when I heard about you and heard about all that you have done working at Essence Magazine, which is something that I've been reading from I'm a little girl, and NBC, which I love NBC. I was like, oh my God, I have to have her. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So first and foremost, because your last name is Ayisi, right?
Yes.
And that's, from the sound of it, and even just looking at your background, the sculpture that you have, you're of African descent, African parents.
Yes. So I'm a first generation Ghanaian American. My parents are from Ghana, so a good majority of my family is still there. So my family is from Ghana, West Africa, and I was born here in the States.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been to Ghana?
Oh yes, yeah, I've been to Ghana. I lived there years ago, and just kind of back and forth for the last. Been very back and forth for the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your career now in journalism and in media, tell us how that unfolded, because
oh gosh.
I know why you say oh gosh.
So much.
All right, give me a condensed version.
Okay, I'll give you a condensed version. So condensed version, let's see. I'm actually a career changer. I was teaching English, and I always wanted to study. I did study journalism kind of at the bachelor's level, but never pursued it, and wanted another opportunity to really go hard at some issues and some stories around the world that were really underreported, that I found to be underreported and really lacked substantive coverage. So I set out to work in journalism and work in media, and I left teaching and went to pursue a master's degree in broadcast journalism. So I moved to New York City, went to New York Institute of Technology, got my master's degree, had a bunch of different internships in between, and different New York stations, Long Island stations. I did one summer in Ghana, and when I did that summer in Ghana, they offered me a job after I completed my degree. So I did, completed, and moved back to Ghana, and then kind of things just moved from there. So my first job was in West Africa, and came back and worked in local news, national news. Now I freelance and also teach. So that's kind of how it all got started, was with a master's degree, and really being very specific about my program of study and my internships, and kind of choosing opportunities along that way.
Okay, awesome. So it's interesting though that you mentioned that initially you taught, you were a teacher.
Yes.
What area did you teach, and how long did you teach for?
I taught for, I think, 6 years. I taught high school or secondary school English literature and composition.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
What was that?
What was that experience like for you?
Oh gosh, teaching in an urban district. Well, not even just it was an urban district. It was the district that I grew up in, so I was definitely a product of my environment. It was inspiring, endearing. It definitely had its challenges, but it was a good point in my life, and just being able to bring English literature concepts to such a diverse community at the time, especially the community that I grew up in, was very, very, very rewarding.
That's
yeah, and it's a lot of work, especially reading English. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
At one point then, because you're teaching, you're having your high schoolers, and then at what point did you realize and say, you know, I really love journalism. I'm going to go into this. At what point did that happen?
I think it was like 2008, 2009. When it was around the end of the time that, at the time candidate Obama was about to, become president. I think it was around his election that I was feeling like I wanted to be on the side of the storyteller. Definitely wanted to be on the side of the storyteller and telling parts of history that were happening before me, and also tell, as I said earlier, underreported stories that also weren't getting the shine that I thought that they deserved and needed. So that's when I really started to make the steps to transition to another career.
Awesome. Yeah. And in terms of, as you mentioned, those stories which are generally underreported, what are those stories over the years which you have covered, which you focus heavily on?
Oh, wow. So that's a lot, because it's been 10 years since I made that decision. So I've covered a wide range of underreported, mostly feature human interest stories. I've done a lot in Jamaica. I love Jamaica. It's one of my favorite places to visit, to hang out, to work. So I've done a lot of stories there, looking at Rastafarian women and how they feel about, especially at that time in the, mid-2000s, I forgot when that piece was, but it was about, it was at the point when, at least in the States, where natural hair was becoming kind of where it is now, and how they felt about natural and kind of living natural versus something that was turning into more of natural hair being acceptable. I lived in Ghana and covered a wide range of feature stories there. I actually interviewed Rita Marley, Bob Marley's wife. That was my first day at my job. Yeah, when I lived there. Awesome. Yeah, that was about 10 years ago. So that was really good. Health and fitness. I've done political stories. I've looked at slave castles as tourist attractions, both in Ghana and Senegal. I've covered a lot of dance stories in the Black dance community, the Black dance ballet community in the States. Last summer, I covered a piece on a ballet school in Nigeria. So there's a wide range. I love the stories that I think, they're news in terms of it's providing you information and or they're on a community level or a global level, but providing information, knowing how other people live, especially across the Black African diaspora, and seeing, the vastness of Blackness, so to speak.
Indeed. And in addition to all that, I know you also had done a piece on one of our Jamaican female politicians, Ann-Marie Vaz, which I understand you also earned an award for, got an award for. Tell us about that.
Yes, I interviewed her, I would say 2019, I believe that was 2019. And that was a piece for Essence. But I met her maybe the year or two before. So when I had met her, there was no kind of political journey at the time. And then things changed very quickly after we had met. And I just started watching conversations on social media and saw that she was running for office. And I was like, oh, when I met her, I didn't know that she was into politics, because she wasn't. So I think that's part of the intrigue and success of her story, and thus success in her story is success for people of East Portland. So I saw this story brewing and things that her opponent was saying, things that were happening in the community and some of the issues that were on the ground. I had visited East Portland a number of times. It's one of my favorite places to visit. So I was very interested to see and to hear issues and longstanding issues that had not been resolved, and saw that there was a story happening, and really wanted to hear what was happening, and if she was able to win this seat, that she would be the first woman to do so. So there was definitely the historical element to the story. So I spoke to her, I think maybe a week or two before the election, and then I think the next day or a few days later.
Awesome. And the award that you got was for, what was that?
Yes, so that piece was two stories that I wrote for Essence Online. So they were selected and nominated and won about a month ago for Best in International Feature News with the National Association of Black Journalists. So that was a very exciting.
That's impressive, and I'm sure that's not the only award that you've gotten.
Oh, who's counting?
I know. Looking at your bike, and I was like, awards. But let's move on from the award.
Work hard like everybody else. It's for me. I think it's about, it's always good to be recognized, but I love amplifying my joys and amplifying a story that would have been otherwise maybe perhaps ignored. When people think of Jamaica, especially from a tourist sense, we have the wonderful side of the island that has the Montego Bay and Negril, and that's where a lot of the heart of the tourism, your country, is, and that's a that's a beautiful, beautiful country with many, many parts to explore. And I had stumbled on Portland some years ago. Yes. I thought it was a beautiful place, and that, like, why aren't more people coming here? And it was very raw and untapped, and almost a sense of ecotourism. So my joy is in finding stories in these places where everybody's not going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more than the award.
I definitely agree with that. It's the getting the untapped, mysteries and treasures and the people. Okay, so moving on, Erica, as we mentioned in the intro, as I mentioned, having worked at NBC News, you still do freelancing with them, Essence Magazine. These are all international media. Mm-hmm. So for someone looking on, even myself as somebody in the media as well, one may ask, so how is it you were able to land these opportunities?
First, with NBC, I rewind with them. After I worked, I think, in Ghana, I came back and became a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. So I went to they have an annual convention which also hosts a job fair with a number of organizations there. So I think it was, I can't remember which year it was, but I went one year and they were there and I was just looking for a job. I had just come back from working overseas and I wanted to stay in the States for a bit and was just kind of giving my resume out to anybody and everybody who was willing to look at it. And so I dropped it in the right box and that kind of opened the door for me with NBC. But I got in initially as a page. If any of you are familiar with the show 30 Rock, I was, yes. So with Kenneth, I got in the page program, which is a very, I call it bougie and elitist page program for news people. But yeah, I got into that. And so I got into the page program and was with them not very long before I got hired. I was still, with NBC, but with Nightly News with Brian Williams. And so I worked as an editorial desk assistant with Nightly News. Really was a producer behind the scenes and really working as part of an editorial team to help produce the newscast. And then from there, I just kind of built a relationship with them as they started new verticals, such as NBC BLK. That's where a lot of my stories, a good majority of my stories with them host. I've done stories for them back in Ghana, looking at slave castles, as I've mentioned, interviewing African women, young girls like us who went back to Africa to create their own brand of chocolate using African chocolate. So making chocolate African again, so that we always know where it comes from. And so just having that freelance relationship with them. And my latest piece with them, it's been some time, but was with NBC World. I went to Cambodia and covered a story looking at exploitation in the human hair trade industry, and met women that cut and sell their hair as a means of survival. And that was my last piece with NBC. So that was my first time traveling and working in Asia as well.
Wow, that's very interesting, and that's a very topical issue, as you know. But looking at the opportunities that those jobs have afforded you, like, what's the best part of it so far for you?
Whenever my stories get published, that's always great. It feels like my birthday. But I think it's important to remember, I pitch these stories. They're not calling me. If you look at my stories, I would say 95% of them, are stories that I've pitched. Very rare is it the other way around. So whether it's a story with NBC or Essence or Afro L Magazine, whoever, Exo Nicole, I'm pitching these stories. They're not calling me. So I think, if anything, it's important to, if you want to be a writer or a storyteller, is to pay attention to what's going on to the world around you. So not so much of a focus on these international organizations as it is what can you bring to them more than what they are bringing to you. They're not. So I find these stories being a part of conversations, being curious. And this is with whether it's in local news, national news. There's things that I think are important to anyone that wants to be a part of documenting history in stories, is to be curious and to pay attention and to put yourself out there. Because I don't work full time for any of these organizations, I have to do my research. I was doing it just this weekend, looking for editors. I have to stay up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning looking for editors and looking for emails and cold calling producers and news directors. So really be curious about your story, and then really having the guts to put yourself out there and don't wait for them to call you to go do that story.
Wow, that's a good word of advice, and that applies to just about any profession, come to think of it. Because sometimes we are fearful and don't want to, we fear the rejection, so we don't want to try. But that's so crucial in terms of us, putting ourselves out there, as you rightly mentioned. Yes,
that's really important, because then all they can say is no, right? And then you move on. You can take the same story. People tell me no, you keep going, or you take the story to another place. Maybe it wasn't the right fit. Or maybe you need to rework on it a little bit more. So don't be afraid of no.
Wow, I love that. And that's actually something I always say, like, if they say no, then I know somebody who always says when they say no, it means new opportunity. It's an acronym. So
yeah,
I really do like that. Okay, so your forte is generally in terms of writing then. That's what you love to do more so in terms of media.
I like writing. I started out in broadcast. So I always say how I ended up writing these long form articles. I'm not quite sure how that happened because I started in television and would like to go back to not so much television or video, working in video again. That's, I would say, my first choice. But I like writing, whether it's for TV or video, it doesn't matter, or print, it doesn't matter. Because if you're on the air, doing the 6 o'clock news or doing a mini documentary or something, you're still writing your script. So even if it's for video. So I'm always I just like to be involved in terms of storytelling, gathering elements, working creatively to gather elements, and always a part of storytelling. But I would definitely love to get back to more video for sure.
That's awesome. Well, maybe we can do some collaboration together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, Erica. All right. So who or what inspires you, especially in terms of your work and what you put out there, the content that you put out?
Who inspires me, I think, first and foremost are Black people.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because we are so just magnificent and unique and different in different shades and different shapes, live in different places, believe different things, and there's just so much that has to be told, that has to be challenged, so that has to be examined and amplified and lifted. So I would say always it just Blackness inspires me. My mother, as an immigrant, living in the United States, she inspires me. And kind of women making their own way and their own path, and not kind of conforming to any type of standards of what your life is supposed to look like or what you're supposed to do on anyone's calendar. So I have wonderful friends. A couple of my girlfriends inspire me in that way. So
I really do I actually like how you talk, by the way. I love you have a very calming spirit, a very calming tone. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yes.
Yes, very calming spirit.
Oh, thank you.
In addition to the media, you're also a business owner.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I think it's all kind of in one, right? A sense of social entrepreneurship, because as a freelancer, no matter what capacity, whether you're a photographer or a writer, if you work for yourself, you work for yourself. So, but you just keep adding on things that keep you still working for yourself. So one of them is my small business. I sell African clothing and home decor, all made in different parts of the continent. And I work with different vendors and women on the continent and bring stuff over to the States and then kind of ship it throughout. So right now it's mostly based online. It's called Akosia's Closet, so anyone can check it out, akosiascloset.com. And you can see the wide range of home decor. I have beautiful pillows and earrings. I think I have some on here.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Thank you. These are made in Nairobi.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I definitely purchase something from you.
Yes, I have waist beads. The beads that sit on your waist on the string. Those are from Ghana. Those are very, very sexy. So it's a very nice, I think, wide array of jewelry and clothing that just extends conversations on Africa and African women. So, and it's an extension of my work as a storyteller.
Certainly, as someone who provides content, right? You create content and then you also sell your content, you sell your work. And as we mentioned, a lot of them with these international agencies and companies. What are some of the key tips, especially nowadays as we find that more persons are becoming podcasters or YouTubers. It's not just only about, you know, the television or the traditional media.
Right.
So
Right.
what are some tips that you would, you know, share?
I would say, because as you said, you know, it's like I consider myself a social entrepreneur and have your hand in different things. You don't have to have your hand in everything. Also, so just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to solve everybody's problem and do everything. You can kind of focus on one or two things and flesh those things out. And see where it takes you. So I also want it for people, especially young people, to understand that. I think with social media, we're always kind of looking at other people's lives, and you can feel like, oh, they're doing a podcast, or they're doing this, or you don't have to do everything. Maybe if you want to do a podcast, think about how you can just focus on that podcast and do it really well. And have a great show and have your audio sound really clear and crisp. And so kind of start there. Think, instead of like, I have to do everything. Like I have to do the Clubhouse. That's the new thing, right?
Yeah.
Clubhouse and the podcast. So just focus on maybe one thing and really see how you can just kind of break it down and do it really well. And most of all, make sure you're having fun at it. You know, make sure you really enjoy it. You picking content and stories that you like, picking guests that you think you can have a great conversation with, and make sure that you're having fun. Because if you get so caught up in the business of it, you can lose track of yourself. So you really still want to make sure that you're having fun while you're learning a lot of these new tools and trying to see where you can fit in.
That is so true. I mean, in addition, while you're doing the work, it's important to love it and have fun and be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're winding down, but I wanted to also ask you, because one of the things I tend to ask our trailblazers, and especially as a young woman as well, a young Black woman working with these big major companies, have you, you know, had any major challenges because of maybe you being a woman or also your ethnicity, or that's not been a challenge personally for you?
Oh, sure, I have. Of course. I worked in local news years ago outside, actually in my hometown, and in Worcester, and they had never, I think at that time, they hadn't had a Black woman anchor reporter in over 10 years. They never had, the lighting was never done well. It was just, I think, a lot of stories about the immigrant community and their challenges and successes were just generally overlooked, and it was really just kind of business as usual. So, of course, I had my challenges with reporting in that community and advocating for certain stories and advocating for better lighting. You know, when the Black girl's at the desk, you can't use the lighting for the white girl. You got, even though you haven't touched it in 20 years. So, yeah, and just working with the community that had not had experience working with Black women in that way, and I'm not sure if you were the intern or who you were. And it's like, no, I'm the reporter, I'm the camera woman. There's no crew behind me. There's no man behind me carrying the camera. I'm doing it myself, and I'm going to edit it myself. So, you know. It just is always a constant sense of, you know, prove yourself.
Prove yourself, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What are your key tips for success for anyone watching? But especially, I want to zoom in a bit on the women and the young women, because, you know, we both are young women, but especially you're my guest. So what are your key tips for success for someone like you, who you're doing your thing, you're self-actualized, you carry a sense of purpose about you. So what's your message to those who are also watching?
I would say to young women, take your time to know yourself. Take the time to know yourself, and to really, I would say, put your gadgets down. Put your phone down, and you can't take the time to know yourself if you're always looking at how other people are themselves, their so-called selves. So I think kind of just taking the time to know yourself and see what your hobbies are, what gives you joy, what makes you laugh, what makes you feel connected to people. And I think once you start to have a better sense of self, you'll start to make better decisions. But you can't always have that if you're always like scrolling and looking at other people. Sometimes that can give you a false sense of yourself, and that's not really true. Mm-hmm. So take some time to know yourself and to read.
Yes, read indeed. And that brings me to my last question, because there's no way I could have you on the program and you're a writer.
Yes.
And you clearly love reading as well. Tell me your top book for life.
Oh, for life?
Yeah, that has changed your life, or one of your number one books then.
Well, do I have it? What am I reading? I don't have it next to me. I'll just talk about the book that I'm currently reading, if we can start there. I'm currently reading The Cult of Donald Trump. And I'm currently reading that so that to have an understanding of the mindset of what has brought this moment of where the United States is, to understand the mindset, because it's not, with the things that have happened at the Capitol in the last 2 weeks, it's that it didn't just start on that day. And so to understand the deep mindset, looking at some of the behaviors that are cultish and really calling it what it is, and how, even as a journalist, and how even the media played a part in this. So I think it's important to kind of dissect things, to look at where we are, and what, even like I said, as a journalist, be a part of making sure this doesn't happen again, or calling things out as moving forward.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. And I know that's the one you're reading now, but what's the one that has transformed your life, if any has?
Of course. All right, let me see. Something that's transformed my life. I would say, I don't know, maybe Malcolm X or The Color Purple.
Oh, those two are good.
Yes.
I've read Malcolm.
Have you read them?
Yes, I've read Malcolm X. I've read his autobiography. I actually read it when I was in high school. Very good. Very good book. And Color Purple, I didn't read Color Purple. I watched the movie. I don't know if that counts.
It counts. It half counts.
For those persons who are looking on, and especially as an international journalist, right? Mm-hmm. You are in an international atmosphere. You've worked with these major corporations. What's your advice to them, especially for persons within maybe minority communities or small island nations, to think big?
I would say widen who you know, and that may be difficult. You may think, due to the pandemic, it's, you can't travel, you can't do meetings and things like that. Nature gatherings are not being held. So it may be your initial, seem initially as a challenge, but take advantage of this virtual space. Spend time on LinkedIn. See if there's online conferences that you can go to, maybe for a small fee, or if they're free, and see what kind of meetings and panels that you can sit in on to try to connect with new people. There's all kinds of meetings and conferences now happening via Zoom and Skype that are generally, many of them are free. So try to take advantage of them and really do some research and invest time in learning your industry, and seeing where there's virtual meetings that you can be a part of.
Thank you so much, Erica. I really appreciate it. I love your spirit.
Oh, thank you.
You have a very calming spirit. You're very calm in your personality, but I love it.
Oh, thank you. Most of the time. Most of the time.
So thank you so much for sharing on the program. Continue to keep up the great work that you're doing as a young woman in media internationally. And we applaud you for the work that you have done, and just keep blazing trails.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me today. And I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.